village, cause they messing with the realest. Woo! I can let them blur the vision. Started from the bottom, but I promise I'ma break through. I ain't plan on missing. This is how I'm living every day. I'm trying to make moves.
All right. Hi, I'm Aaron Hosack. This is Bryce Atagi. Welcome to The Climb. We have a very special guest today, man. We're really, really excited for this one. He's actually in town this week for some development. And yeah, we had the opportunity to get him with him in studio, live and in person. So our guest today started their climb in 1989 in Fairfax, Virginia. He is the oldest of four. He has an obsession with bikes that has evolved over the years, from his first blue Huffy to dirt bikes, now to Harleys. And he also races mountain bikes downhill competitively, which sounds extremely dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Our guest started in the trucks as a new hire back in 2018 and has worked his way all the way up to GM of his franchise, man. And he is a hell of a GM. I actually have a couple of his teammates in one of my fast track programs, and they have had nothing but great things to say about this guy. Man, I'm very excited to welcome him on today. Please welcome Nick Sullivan to The Climb, everybody. Let's make some noise for Nick. Nick, how you doing today?
I'm great, man. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Yeah. We heard this was your dream to be on this.
It is my dream. Yeah, it was a goal in 2024 for me, so I'm very excited to be here.
Well, we appreciate that, my man.
Yeah, for the viewers that don't know, so it was probably 3 weeks back. I hit up Nate and Aaron and Sky and was like, hey, Pop just happened to pop into my office. See what I did there? And, he's like, hey, I just got off a one-on-one with somebody, and, one of their goals is to be on The Climb. And I'm like, all right, who is it? He's like, I ain't telling you, because he wants it to be genuine,
Absolutely.
Man. And so, every Friday, Nick and I, we do a one-on-one meeting, kind of working on OKRs and things like that. And he happened to send me a little video, and next thing you know, I call him, and I'm like, hey, what do you think about being on The Climb? And he's like, hey, bro. Did someone tell you that was one of my goals? And so it's crazy how it all happened pretty quickly, man, but we're really excited to have you.
That's awesome.
So, Nick, just kind of getting into your story, what's kind of your background, your upbringing? How did you become the Nick Sullivan that we know today?
Yeah. I grew up in Northern Virginia. I live in Richmond, Virginia now. So I've been there for about 7 years. But early on, I was a kid in Northern Virginia. There's a lot of people in Northern Virginia. Both my parents work in the government in D.C. So, there's just a lot of competition in Northern Virginia. That was something that I love that I grew up in that environment because it made it very competitive and it made it so that I wanted to be a competitor. Now it's kind of funny because the way my story goes, like, I didn't even finish high school. I dropped out of high school because, for a number of reasons. But I, in hindsight, attribute it to being aimless at the time. Like, I didn't have a clear path. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So, to me, college wasn't something that I even wanted to do. It wasn't for me. So, when I think back to like pivotal times in my life, there was a huge moment for me in 2003. My cousin. Well, let me back up a little bit. I grew up as a kid, a skateboarder. I listened to punk rock. Like, that was me. I had the Vans and all that. So that was my thing. And, in 2003, I remember being at a skate park with my cousin, Brian, who was somebody that I looked up to a ton at that time, And he, we were skating at the skate park and everything, and we were talking about a magazine ad that we had seen in Thrasher for Vans Warped Tour. And all my favorite bands were playing it, so I was like super excited, and I was young, I was 13, so I was like, I told my cousin, I was like, man, that would be so cool to be able to go to that one year, and he was like, dude, I'm gonna take you, and I was like, man, like, how old do I have to be to go? And he's like, 13, I don't know, like, so we ended up going, and man, it changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my life for sure. Like, I know that if Brian hadn't taken me to that concert, I wouldn't have done the things that I had done because, that to me was just like, it opened up a whole new world for me. Like, I had never seen, it's a festival style tour for anybody who doesn't know about Vans Warped Tour. It's like tons of artists there, so you're seeing a ton of different people. My favorite bands, I remember my favorite band at the time was Rancid. And I saw them perform and the mosh pits and just the sea of people. And back then, Vans Warped Tour was like Vans Warped Tour. So they had like the skate park, there was like the skate demos and stuff. So being able to see all that was just like, wow, dude, this is the environment that I want to spend the rest of my life in. Like, I didn't know how to do it. I just knew that that's what I wanted to be a part of. So, I went back and, I spent back then was like MySpace time, so I spent a lot of time on MySpace, like researching all these artists and stuff that I liked, acquiring a bunch of, at the time, pretty much useless information about these artists and stuff. But I basically I never let up. Like, I played in bands. Now I had luckily I had a good amount of self-awareness at the time to know that I was definitely the weakest link in any band that I played in. Like, and I know what it was. I just wasn't putting it into practice. I was more focused on just being in the band and like being that guy that was in a band versus like being a really good guitarist or being a really good drummer. And if I could go back and do it again, I would just practice more for sure. But, at the time that wasn't, it wasn't what I was doing. So I started to see other people that were involved in the music industry from shows that I was going to and stuff like that. And I was like, maybe that would be for me, like stepping onto the business side, kind of the behind the curtains side of things. So I basically, I just started working at a concert venue through a friend. He got me the job there. And I met another guy there, Tyler Green, who's my best friend. And he's somebody who definitely at an early age poured into me, and kind of showed me the ropes of how to do things and stuff like that. And, in a short matter of time, I basically had gone from event staff, which is basically like the beginner level at the venue, all the way to, next was a production manager. So I was kind of in charge of like the stuff on stage and whatnot. And then from there, Tyler, who was the general manager and my best friend, kind of slid into another role where he was just dealing with all the booking and stuff. So I was the general manager and I was in charge of the venue. And that was an awesome time. Like that was, it was basically like the beginning of the dream coming true, kind of. So I spent 3 years there as a general manager. I had an amazing time. I had met so many people. I had networked and stuff like that. From there, I did a lot of things that I wanted to do there. But I guess at the time I would have been 24 when I left there. Yeah, and the reason I left was just because like I was going to the same venue every day. And it was cool. I liked it. But anybody who's in their early 20s, I mean, especially today, everybody wants to travel, right? So I started looking at it as like, you know what? I want to do the same thing that I'm doing now, but I want to go and do it everywhere in the world. Well, actually, that's not true. At first, I just wanted to do the U.S. I wanted to go on tour in the U.S. That was like my first goal. And so the first opportunity that I had was with a band that I listened to a lot, actually, called For the Fallen Dreams, smaller band. We did about a 10-day tour. So I went out with them for 10 days. Not gonna lie, man, it was a low-budget tour. Like I can't even remember. I think I got like $600 or something.
Where did you guys go? What cities?
Oh, so this was funny. So the band was from Detroit, right? Yeah. So they did a tour in December, just right out of Detroit, basically. So that was pretty brutal. So it was all in like the Northeast and stuff. So like I drove up there from Virginia with another one of my friends who was actually a drummer in that band. So he lived in the same area, went to high school together and stuff. Drove up there with him, started the tour. We were out for 10 days. Last day of the tour, we were traveling in a van, like one of those 16 passenger vans or whatever, sleeping in the van every night, just a bunch of smelly dudes. And and so basically the last night of the tour, I can't remember where we were at. I think it was I can't remember where it was at, but it was cold. That's all I remember. It was freaking cold, right? So the back window of those vans, like they don't roll down, they just like kind of pop out a little bit. So we had gotten to a Taco Bell at 3 a.m. after the show, whatever. We get out of the van, we lock the keys in the van. We're like, crap, dude. But we had left that back window open a little bit. So we got this one dude who would sell the merch, and he was pretty skinny. So we tried to get him to stick his arm through that little hole in the window, and then that boom, just busted the glass out, right? So we're like, holy crap, dude, what do? We got to drive overnight, like 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever, to get back to Detroit with the freaking trash bag taped over the...
Cold,
yeah, freezing, dude. Like, that was just like... But, all that stuff happened. Like, there was, we were lucky if we could get, like, a Chipotle burrito that day, on a daily basis that day. 100%. So, like... to a lot of people, it was probably like, man, that seemed pretty miserable. It was like the time of my life. I loved it, dude. It was so cool.
Taco Bell's the place to go.
Yeah.
3 a.m.
Yeah, well, yeah. And on a budget, too, man. Like, you can do some damage at Taco Bell.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah.
So, well, 2 questions for you. The first one is, You know, these dudes don't know about MySpace. What was the one song that would play on MySpace when people would jump on your MySpace?
It was Journey to the End of the East Bay by Rancid.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's always that one song when people would go on your MySpace that they would
That
hear.
was Tupac Changes.
There you go. Classic.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Nick. Thank you for sharing that story. Like, what was your dream job as a kid? Was it a musician? Was it kind of where you started to head?
Yeah.
In your early adolescence?
Well, I mean, like I said, man, when I was younger, I was pretty aimless. Like I didn't have a goal in mind as far as what I wanted to be. Now this is kind of funny. I mean, I was a kid when I said this. When you set up a account on a lot of places, it'll say like security questions or whatever. What is your dream, job as a? I always just put Rockstar. I thought like looking back now, like it's kind of funny, right? But in hindsight, like I don't think I ever really wanted to be a rock star. I just wanted to be around that world. I find more, I'm happier like behind the scenes being somebody who helps like just make the environment and the time possible versus being the person on the stage. You know what I mean? So just took a lot of, figuring out, but that's what I decided I wanted to do.
That's really cool. That's a unique way of looking at that, yeah. The person that kind of controls everything around, right? Like the talent or the person that's on the spotlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you think about you taking that one thing as a kid, when you're 13 years old, sitting out in that crowd and looking and saying like, dang, I want to be able to do this. And then you essentially made that happen, man. So that's incredible. So dropped out in high school, right? Worked at a grocery store, okay? Now you go in and you start working for the club. Then you become essentially, a tour manager, right? On your little 10-day tour. And then you have the opportunity to, which the viewers don't know, right? To tour manage a 7-time platinum artist in GoldLink, man.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, walk us through that 5-year journey, man. Like, what was that like for you, man, to experience that, and how did it come to that?
Are you saying going from the venue to GoldLink, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really cool how it all panned out, honestly, because GoldLink is he's like a brother to me, man. We grew up in the same area, like we've known each other for a really long time, and yeah, I mean, So I got a phone call. Let me back up a little bit, I guess. So when I was working at the venue, we had a promoter that we dealt with a lot. He did all of our hip-hop shows. His name was Henny. Henny was a good friend of me and Tyler's. And Tyler and I had a townhouse right down the street from our venue that we worked at. And Henny actually moved into the basement. So the three of us lived together. Tyler was, like kind of he used to tour in his metal band and stuff. Henny was... he was like a local rapper for a while, but then he got more kind of similar to me, like realized that he wanted to get more into the back end of things. So, Henny reached out to me one day and was like, hey, I was at my office at the venue, which was at the venue. So he calls me and he's like, hey man, I need a favor. He owned a studio in Falls Church, and he was like, hey, I'm going to send this kid over there to you today. Can you show him how to hold a microphone? And I was like, what, he's messing with me right now. Like, why is he telling me this, And I'm like, what do you mean, like, show him how to hold a microphone? And he's like, well, dude's got, like, a sold-out show this weekend in D.C. at U Street Music Hall. And I'm like, okay, so why do I need to show him how to hold a microphone? And he's like, he's never actually performed before. And I'm like, it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, well, so how's he got a sold-out show at this cool venue in D.C., like, a week ahead of time?
For sure.
And he's like, dude, SoundCloud, like, and that was the wave of rappers that were getting popular at that time. So he had sold out the show ahead of time, and he had no idea how to hold a microphone. Yeah. So he shows up, and I remember, I'll never forget, he came walking into the venue, and he's, like, acting all weird and stuff like that. And he's just, like, a very different dude, right? Yeah. And he comes out and he gets up on stage, and I showed him specifically because, like, there's, Bryce, you're a musician. If you put the microphone way up to your mouth, you're going to get feedback, and if you're in front of the monitors and stuff like that. So I showed him, how to hold the mic. I showed him a little trick that we use to kind of gauge, like, the distance. Like, you hold the ball of the microphone and then hold this finger out so that you've got, like, an inch of space. And the funny thing is like I showed him how to do that before his first show, and like to this day I'll still see him on stage doing it the same way. Yeah. And I think most people probably like get rid of the finger, you know what I mean? But it was just something that was like comfortable to him, so I always thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, that was pretty much how we got there.
Yeah, and then So then you go from that moment, you're teaching him how to hold a microphone. And next thing you know, you're his manager, and you're going on tour. You've seen the world, like a lot of places that a lot of people in the world haven't seen. So, walk us through that journey, man.
Yeah, man. So like I said, he did the first show. I actually didn't work for him at that show. The first show that I worked for him was called Sweet Life Festival in DC. It was he was on stage with like The Weeknd, who was popular at the time. There's like a bunch of other artists. It was a really cool festival. And he came out and he smashed his set. And when he did that, that was the first show that I had fully worked for him and everything. And I was just like, yo, this dude has got it. I just want to be a part. I want to do what I can to help him get to where he can go, So that was really cool. And then, from there we basically built from the ground up. I mean, like I said, we were very lucky because he was, he gained a lot of traction before even like getting out and doing a live show. So first tour, we were in, I think for that one we would have done, we did a Sprinter for that tour. It was like a Sprinter bus and then a trailer. Traveled around like that. The next tour was, I believe the next one was, we did a tour with Mac Miller, the Good AM tour when he put that album out. And we spent a lot of time with those guys. That was an incredible tour. That was something that was just like, man, like we were playing like Fillmore size rooms, so like 2,000 people around that, like every night, like all over the country, like incredible crowds. Like the biggest thing too that I really enjoyed about that tour was like the crew. So there was, the people that were with Mac Miller were amazing. Like I learned so much. They took me under their wing. Elise was his tour manager, and she would always ask me like, hey, you should ride on the bus with us tonight so that, we can go over some things, like basically trying to make me better as a tour manager, even though she had no vested interest in me really, but we just all clicked. And it was kind of that, music is a lot of people look at it as like a labor of love. Like you don't really necessarily get into it to get rich. Some people do, but I mean, a lot of people just do it because they just love doing it. So for her, it was like it was fun for her to be able to kind of teach what she already knew and everything. And I took it and ran with it. Like I listened to everything she said. I stayed in touch with her. There was multiple other people on that tour that, made an impact on my life too, for sure. And I stayed in touch with them as well. And, created lifelong friends with those guys. And Mac too. I mean, Mac was an amazing dude, rest in peace, obviously. But
R.I.P. Mac.
Yeah, but, it's really sad what happened to him. But, I just, when I think about it, I just think about like all the good times on that tour. Man. And, I feel really blessed that we were able to be a part of it, and that that happened for us.
Yeah, that's incredible, bro.
Yeah, that's awesome. A lot of good, like connecting with a lot of great people. Some of the best people doing what they did in the world, right? And these experiences that you've had. How did that? I know how it had an effect on you early in your adolescence, teenage years. How did it change your perspective later in life? And eventually, follow-up question: what led you to 1-800-GOT-JUNK after that?
How did it change my perspective on life?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that there was a lot of, it sounds cool. It sounds like everything was just fun and all that stuff, but there was a lot of adversity that we had to overcome as a team. And, I think one of the biggest things that I loved about it was, it kind of instilled a mindset in me that it's like, we're never screwed. You know what I mean? Like we dealt with so many things, as you can imagine, being on the road together like that. We dealt with so many things where we were like, I mean, we've been arrested in Canada, like just all kinds of stuff, to where it's just like, you might look at it and be like, oh my gosh, the world is burning down right now. But just going through that kind of stuff like multiple times, it's like you kind of just, you understand that it's like it might be a season, or it might be just a bad day or something like that. But, it's never that bad. Like you can get through it.
Yeah, and I don't know, you're aware of the Southwind mantra, right?
Yeah.
We're never fucked.
Can I say it? Okay. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I was going to say it for you, so I was going to help you out.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, we have to beep that out. But yeah, what led you to 1-800-GOT-JUNK after that in Southwind?
Yeah, so I mean, I did what I wanted to do, man. I did what I set out to do, and I toured the world. I've been to Dubai, I've been all over Europe, I've been to Australia. I don't even know how many times at this point, but it got to a point where, there was a lot of positives. I learned a lot from the road. It was a gift, dude. Every day was a gift, man, like that not everybody has. So I never take that for granted. But basically what it boiled down to was like, I just decided that I didn't want, like, for me to make money, I had to be gone. You know what I mean? So like, I wanted to travel. That was kind of the initial intent with all that. But then it became, okay, now I've traveled a lot and I've missed a lot. So I missed weddings. I missed, you know, birthdays, stuff with my family. You know, there was even things that were going on inside my family, my immediate family, that I wasn't around for, and I probably should have been around for. Yeah. Plus, you know, I didn't. This is gonna sound funny, but I didn't want to be the last to leave the party. Like, I didn't want to be that guy who was like 45 years old on tour, just like, hey man, you know what I mean? Like, so I wanted to kind of like go out on top in a sense, and I feel like I did. I mean, we had a really good run. And I still work for him. Like, I did a couple shows for him, more than several shows for him last summer in the UK. So those were all just festival one-off dates where we would fly out and just, I mean, at this point, we're dialed in. Like, we know what the show is. We know how to, like, advance it is what it's called, to be able to, like, set up the whole production and stuff ahead of time and whatnot. So, like, we can make it happen pretty quick. So, yeah.
Like riding a bike, could you get back into it tomorrow?
Heck yeah, dude. I definitely could. And I mean, even like I had there was a dude who's another good friend of mine, Mark Freeze, when we were growing up at the venue, or when we were working at the venue, he was kind of an intern for us, and he was like learning local booking and stuff like that. The dude skyrocketed, and I mean, he's got a great business right now where he books shows all over the country. And every now and then he'll need like show reps and stuff like that, and I'll kind of like cherry pick sometimes and just be like, hey man, I saw you guys so and so coming, like, you need a rep, because he does shows in Richmond and stuff. And, so I definitely stay tapped in with the music scene, but it's not my full-time grind anymore, obviously. So yeah, that's kind of what brought me here. One night I had gotten back from a tour, and I was just on Indeed, I guess. And yeah, I was just like looking for jobs. And to be honest with you, I was looking for what at the time I called a throwaway job. For sure. Because I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was still aimless, you know what I mean? So I was like, let me just start making money at home so that I can make that transition, right? So I did. I got the job at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. The way that happened, basically, like I said, I applied on Indeed at it was like 9:30 or 10 o'clock one night. And I wake up the next morning, because tour life, dude, I don't wake up before like 11 a.m., you know what I mean? So my phone's going off at like 7 in the morning. I'm like, what the heck, who is this? 804 number, I answer. Lona Stish from, you know, the previous ownership group. And she's like, hi, is this Nick? Blah, blah, blah. And she just had this like awesome energy about her. And she's like, this is 1-800-GOT-JUNK and blah, blah, blah. You seem awesome. Like, I want to get you in here and meet you and stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool, like, let's do it. So I went in and I got to meet her. I met Jason Weaver, who was my franchise partner at the time, and they sold me on the job. I was like, man, one of my favorite shows at the time was American Pickers. So like, to me, it was just like, it's like, it sounds like getting paid to be on American Pickers, basically. And you know, I still am. I like to be active. You know, I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be. I like the idea of the autonomy of, you know, kind of being trusted to go and just do your jobs and whatnot. And yeah, so I jumped on board. I was part-time when I got started, because I was still kind of transitioning. I was still doing a lot of touring and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I started working here. And then I fully stopped touring for like a year. So as soon as that happened, I put in my 2 weeks notice. And I had gotten another job because I was used to making a certain amount of money when I was touring, and it was a pretty big hit on how much money I was making. So, you know, based off of what I wanted to do in life and how I was used to living, I was like, you know, I need to make more money. So I got another job. I called Jason and I was like, hey man, you know, this kind of sucks, but I have to put in my 2 weeks notice. Like, I got this other job. And he's like, no. He's just like completely stops me from doing it and just changes the perspective for me. He's like, no, like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, he was like, I've got this other position that's available. It's called junior ops. And I'm like, what is that? Like, I didn't know what it was, but they had that position before. So he kind of explained it to me and kind of painted a picture for me of like, dude, you can make a lot of money. You could anything you want, you can get here. Like, you can become a franchise partner, you can be an equity partner. And I was like, okay, you know, and I always liked Jason. Like, him and I had a really good working relationship, and I just trusted him. Like, he was a good guy. So I was like, you know, like in the past, like, I've had poor management, poor ownership, stuff like that, and like, I'll never take that for granted if I've got a good one, you know. And Jason was a good one. So for me, it was a little tough. I was like, you know, I don't know if this is the right decision yet, but I mean, as I continued down that path, like today, there's nowhere else I'd rather be, for sure.
Throwaway job that's 6 years in now. Man.
Yeah, it's funny how life works. Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah.
What was that moment where it kind of changed from just a job to, like, you saw it as a career?
Yeah, I think it was when I tried to quit.
Yeah,
because it was like as soon as I made that choice to have to call the other company back and be like, hey, I know I just accepted this job, but my job came with another offer, and I'm going to stay there. I'm going to take that. That was me saying, like, I'm putting my stake in the ground. This is what this is where I'm going to be.
Yeah, well, we're glad you are.
Me too.
Absolutely, man. So, dig a little deeper if you don't mind, right? So, any setbacks, lessons over the years that have kind of, you had to bounce back from during this time? Because junking isn't easy, let's be honest. Like, there's some tougher days, and I'm sure touring was the same way. And
Yeah, setbacks. I mean, as far as the touring days go, I mean, there was a lot of times when I just didn't know if I was on the right path. Like, I didn't really, like I said, I mentioned Tyler Green before. He was my best friend. He was kind of the one who helped me get through all of it because he had done it before. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was like I hadn't done any of this stuff before, and I was basically working for myself, like when I was touring. So there was a lot of times when I was like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? It's like it was really all on me. I had to find my next tours. I had to make sure that I had, money coming in months down the line. Yeah. So, it was, sorry. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, man. You had to go get it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's probably nice to have, a mentor or somebody you can look up to who's been through it before. That's a affirming voice, I would imagine, during the tough times as well, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody needs that.
Yeah, when you think about the difficult decisions, sacrifices, like things you've had to sacrifice, how has sacrifice played a key role in helping you grow?
Yeah, I mean, the sacrifices really was like the opportunity cost of not being there for a lot of the stuff that that most people are there for. Like, I missed a lot of weddings. I missed a lot of birthdays and stuff. One of my brothers my brother who's 3 years younger than me, he was going through some stuff when I left to go on tour pretty regularly. He was dealing with addiction and stuff like that, and that was definitely something that I look back on and I'm like, man, if I was home, I probably could have stopped that or had a more played a better role in keeping that from happening. So that was definitely something that I look back on and I'm like, man, like, was that the right opportunity? But people would talk to me, like my mom talked to me actually about what he's going through is something that he's got to fight. Like, you got to be in his corner and everything, but like, you can't stop doing what you're doing because of that. So, and that was something too where I was like, man, I don't even know if that's the best advice. Like, should I just stop doing this? Should I go home? But I didn't, and thank God, I love my brother. He's good now. He overcame that. So
great news.
Yeah.
How do you remain positive in the tough times?
Honestly, man, I've failed so many times that like when the tough times happen, it's kind of just like, this isn't gonna last. But one little key thing that I do actually is, as you can imagine, I've been all over the world, so I've got tons of really cool pictures. My phone, and my phone's with me at all times. So if I'm going through a tough time, I pull that thing out and I'm just like, man, like it's kind of just it energizes me again, and it's like I said, it's not something that everybody gets to do. And like, I know that, and I definitely don't take it for granted. And I love the fact that I had the opportunity to be able to do all that stuff. So sitting and reflecting on that is kind of what helps get me through tougher times of being like, it wasn't always this easy, but like, I've got to do a lot of things, that most people haven't done. So I'm really proud of that.
I think that's a good one for anybody, right? Go back in your phone and just take a trip down memory lane, man.
Yeah.
I got the photo shuffle on mine where it just throw me a random picture of the kiddos every day.
Yeah.
And like, man, it takes you back to a certain place sometimes, but it puts a little positivity in your mood.
For sure.
So let me ask you this, man. Along the way, we've heard about a lot of people that have influenced you. Mm-hmm. But when you're taking those trips down, reflection and thinking back, like, who were those mentors? Who were the biggest influences in your life?
Well, my cousin, Brian, without him, he kind of shaped like who I was when I was younger, because he was like the guy that I wanted to be at the time. You know what I mean? He skateboarded, he played in a band, like I think his band was called the Treetops or something like that. He had like the big baggy pants and stuff back in the 90s and stuff. So, he was definitely somebody who I spent a lot of time with, looked up to. And kind of I would attribute him to being responsible for me getting into music as a whole, because he's the one who took me in 2003 to the concert and ultimately changed my life. Other people like Tyler is a huge, my best friend had a huge impact on my life just because he did a lot of the things that I wanted to do. And he's just such a good dude. He always kind of walked me through certain things. I can always call him and, he'll keep my head on straight. And he doesn't do music anymore either. He's a business owner in Connecticut, so he's very busy. But, me and him are pretty much wired the same, so we can get on the phone any day, and it's like nothing that we never skipped a beat,
Yeah, I love that, man. And it seems like everything that you've been through, your life, your vision that you saw, kind of helped lead you to where you were trying to go, which is pretty freaking cool to hear how you envisioned something and then it actually happened, man. So, like, that being said, when did you really believe anything was possible?
Yeah, man. I think there was a lot of times in my life when I thought that I believed anything was possible. Touring days, that was definitely, I thought that I believed anything was possible. But, more recently, actually, when I was with Southwind was when I realized that I don't think that at that time I really did believe anything was possible. I think I thought it was possible, but a lot of stuff was like highly unlikely, For sure. And to me, it's like, now I just take that highly unlikely part out of the equation because it's like anything really is possible. And the only thing that highly unlikely part does is just limit what possible is. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
That's killer advice. Why do people bet on you?
I think people bet. So for me, for instance, like my favorite people to lead are the people who want to be there, right? And, for instance, like when I got the job at the concert venue, like I started as, event staff where I'm basically like checking. It's a crappy job. Like it sucks, dude. You're cleaning up the puke in the bathroom and stuff like that. Like that wasn't really what I wanted to do, but it was me getting my foot in the door.
Heck yeah.
So like I would just show up every single day. Like I didn't care about getting paid or anything. And I was like show up during the day and I'm like, hey, I'm just going to hang out with you guys and I just want to learn. Like you don't even have to teach me anything. I'm just going to like observe what you're doing. And to me, like when people see that in somebody, they're like, okay, this guy's got what it takes. Like he's not here like, oh man, pay me $20 an hour and then I'll come in and do it. That wasn't my mindset at all. It was just like, and I've had to like student for life, which is ironic since I dropped out of high school, but because of that, it caused me to have to learn from everybody around me, and I learned from people who are younger than me. I learned from people who were, maybe not as advanced in a certain area as me, but just like knowing what not to do sometimes. Like I mentioned before about like poor ownership or poor leadership and stuff. Like I learned a lot from people that were doing the wrong things,
Yeah, and I always, whenever I'm talking to people, I always say, you got to be working towards what you want.
Yeah.
Not what you currently have.
Right.
Right? And like when we're talking about business, I remember Aaron coming up, like he said, man, run this thing like it's yours. I didn't necessarily own any of the business at that time, but I damn sure acted like I did.
Yeah.
Being the first person there, getting down and dirty, with the people. And like at the end of the day, I think that really shows who you are as a person.
100%.
And it helps you. Then when you actually get that spot, you're freaking ready.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you've been preparing for that moment.
Right.
That entire time.
The team will reflect what the leader's commitment or
man.
what his behaviors are going to give the team.
Yep,
right?
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to the listeners that are currently on their climb, man? What advice you got for them?
Just keep pushing that rock every day. Man, that's the biggest thing is like, if you just get, like, you're going to be moving every day, it's on you to make sure you're moving forward, And that was something that I definitely, every day when I woke up, I just knew that I had to do something to keep pushing me towards where I wanted to be and to continue to stay where I'm at, or not stay where I'm at, but stay on the path of growth, So,
yeah, every day you're moving. You either move backwards, you know what I mean? Like you can take a couple steps back or you can keep pushing forward, man, like you said. So that's awesome stuff.
Hey, Nick, we appreciate you, man. We usually end up with one final question, and I think this one's really cool for you because, similar to Bryce and myself, we started our what would perceived careers on one path, right? And then we did kind of a 180 at one point in time, like going from music to business ownership or business management and ownership. And, some people would argue, man, like, hey, you started here, but you ended up here. So tell us why the climb is worth it.
I mean, the climb is worth it because it inspires me and it inspires others. Like when you see somebody who's doing something that they want to do and they're doing it at a high level and they're having fun doing it, like that makes me happy. And I try to do that for other people, honestly. Like I try to stay committed to what I say I'm going to do so that when people see me doing it, they feel inspired to do the same thing in their own life. Like that's it.
It's awesome, man.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Good to
thank
have
you
you
guys.
in-house, man. Usually
Yeah.
you're in Virginia, so glad we got to do this thing in person, man. But really appreciate you sharing with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
It's The Climb.
I can let them blur the vision. Started from the bottom, but I promise I'ma break through. I ain't plan on missing. This is how I'm living every day. I'm trying to make moves, focus on the mission. Ain't no competition anyway that they gon' break you. They gon' need a village. They gon' need a village cause they messing with the realest. Woo!